So I told Carl, he'll go. So anyway, Gene ready to go, and he goes out there, and the pilot says to Gene, I can't take you to Oshkosh tonight because I got all the seats out of the Twin Beach because we're hauling parts to Oshkosh for Carl's cars. And so Carl said to the pilot, send the co-pilot home on the bus. Put Gene Carr in that seat. I want him in Oshkosh tonight. So that tells you what Carl, nothing could stop Carl. So the long story is, the rest of the story is that they borrowed a seat from GM, who at that time was at City Airport. They had a Twin Beach. They borrowed a seat from them, and so Gene came and the co-pilot came too. But Carl was a very demanding guy, and there was no room for compromise. It had to be his way or no way. And our only real arguments with Carl was over money. Carl used lots of parts, and we never charged him. We didn't charge him for them. We never made him pay for them. And then we'd have a meeting every few months where there was a big sit down and a big lot of yelling back and forth about you haven't paid us, you owe us, and all that kind of stuff. I didn't get involved in that, but I was in the meetings, and my opinion was, and I think it's shared by a lot of people at Chrysler, Carl did so much for Chrysler. Supplying him with parts was not a big thing. We were still getting them cheap. When Carl chewed you out, you had to say afterward, yes sir, Mr. Kiekhaefer, you're right. And the guy that's Buck Baker told me the story, the guy that's famous in Carl Kiekhaefer lore is Bob Korf. Because in the Mexican road race, Carl got mad at all of them. He said to everybody, I want you to stand up one at a time, say, yes, sir, Mr. Kiekhaefer, you're right. When he got to Bob Korth, he got up and said, you big son of a bitch. which was the end of Bob Korth working with Carl Kiekhaefer.
How about Buck Baker? What kind of a fellow was he back in the day? Was he an ornery cuss?
He was a womanizer. Good guy. But, NASCAR changed so much that they're very professional now. These guys are multi-millionaires, and they're very professional. When you go back to the 60s, I was sent down to Bristol, Tennessee to spend a week with Buck, and we were paying money to Buck and Buddy, his son, to run cars, and we were doing nothing because this is 1960. This is off after Kiekhaefer, who won a lot, but we didn't on our own. So Bob Rogers sent me down to Bristol. I spent a week with Buddy and Buck. I were at the Holiday Inn in Bristol. Buck was living with Miss Atlanta Raceway, Linda Vaughn was her name.
Oh, really?
Linda Vaughn was 18 years old and was Miss Atlanta Raceway. He was in next door in the room to me. Anyway, Buck was involved with lots of girls, Linda then, this one then, but he was a good race driver. But when I went down there, last time they ran at Bristol, they couldn't remember what camshaft they ran. They couldn't even remember what axle they ran. I mean, they weren't professional in doing it. And we were paying them peanuts to run, which what we were getting back was really nothing. So we withdrew completely from it. With Carl, he put big bucks in, and he did a lot of homework. He did a lot of homework before he raced. Mm-hmm. I went to a race at Milwaukee, and this is AAA. and Buick was even running at that time. Buick's stall was here, and Chrysler stall was there. When a guy named Les Snow pulled in a Buick, the first guy over the wall to check his front tires was Carl Kiekhaefer.
Really? Wow.
And what Carl was worried about was how were his cars doing. So he thought, well, the Buick's a big car, he'd get a feel. So he's over there examining the right front tire of this Buick. It was really, and I mean, he was a really domineering but capable guy.
What year would that have been, for example?
Huh?
What year would that have been, for example?
Well, it would have been 55.
Yeah, okay.
Frank Mundy was probably the driver for him. I don't remember just exactly, but I think it was Robbie Frank.
Rebel Monday.
Well, I just say, another story Buck told me to tell you about Carl. Carl had a Lake X somewhere down in Florida. You know, he kept that a secret where Lake X was. And that's where he tested Mercury outboard motors. So he had Buck over, Buck was his principal NASCAR driver. He had Buck over there, and Carl wanted to take him for a drive, for a boat ride. So they hopped in and had 2 Mercury motors, and Carl runs them full throttle, run around the lake. And he comes into the dock, Buck said, way too fast. And then as he gets in the position, he pulls the throttles, the lever back into reverse, and one of the engines stalls. And he runs into the dock, damaged the boat, damaged the dock. You know what Carl did? Fired the mechanic. This is what Buck told me. He said the damn guy came in way too fast. He never should have come in that fast. But Carl's view was the engine shouldn't have stalled. The mechanic going.
I know that Buck could be an ornery cuss though too. It was several years ago. I went down to Bristol just for some high performance training. Buck was running a school of
He ran a driving school.
Right, and he had purchased a bunch of ex-Cup cars, and so we were being trained on those at Bristol, and he just sat with a grumpy look on his face in his chair like that and said, "You guys tell that one this and that." And he's issuing orders from his chair like that, and well, they had this one girl who was just scared. She was petrified to drive around the track, and so what they would do, she's doing like 30 miles an hour under what everybody else wanted to do. So they said, well, you're not allowed to pass, okay? If you want to get around her, come down to the center, wait for her to get by, and then you can go up ahead of her the next time around. And it was driving all of us crazy. And finally, one time, I saw a way to get around her by just coming around the outside of her in the 4th turn, and I nailed it. And I was, probably about this far from the wall, and I knew I was. And darn if I didn't get black flagged in there. They pulled me down in. I said, "What in the world did you throw the black flag out for me for?" He said, "Well, you just about hit that wall." I said, "I didn't hit that wall." He said, "I know it, but you just about did, and that's got Buck all pissed off over here."
Really?
Oh, good grief! But it was a crappy day. We had a lousy time. We really did. I don't think anybody enjoyed it.
When we were at Bristol, Buck was rooming with Linda. Living was wrong. Married to Betty, and that was his second wife. And his first wife came into town on the weekend for the race on Sunday. She was coming in on Saturday. On Saturday morning, when Buck and Linda and I went down to breakfast at the Holiday Inn, Buck said to Linda, "You sit with Burt."
And your wife came into town.
In case either his wife, which was either Betty or Betsy, I can't remember which, in case either Betty or Betsy or his first wife came in, then Linda would be sitting with me. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
And then I rode back to Charlotte after the race was over. Buddy ran and Buck ran, and after the race was over, I rode back to Charlotte with Buddy in a car. It was funny.
What did Buddy think of Buck's ladies' men sorties? What did Buddy think about his dad?
Well, I never discussed that with him. Whoa, one other thing I was thinking about, Buddy. Buddy was running fourth. No, Buck was running fourth. Buddy was already out of the race. I don't remember what the car problem was. Buck was running fourth, and well, no, it had to have been Buddy because I got a little screwed up in the story. Buddy was running fourth, and Buddy came in because he had to go to the bathroom. Made a pit stop. Unbelievable. Anyway, Buck got in the car and drove it, but he said he couldn't drive it because Buddy is so much bigger than he was that the seat was too far back. Those aren't adjustable seats. What they do is they custom fit the seat to the driver and bolt it down. Buddy was the chip off the old block. We did a dealer film at the Proving Ground, and Buddy, there was a guy by the name of White, and Buddy Baker, and a sports car driver there, Bob Tullius, Buck Baker, and Don White. Anyway, we did a preview or a video for the dealers at the Proving Ground, and I was the narrator, and conversation with each one of them after they drove the car. Anyway, Buddy showed up. He just got married that year. He showed up with his girlfriend, not his wife. So he's a chip off the old block.
Wow. Okay. All right.
But the world is different, and I don't know about with the girls, but they're very professional today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I want to tell you, going way back to the 70s, the Pettys came as a family. The Pettys had a picnic on the infield, and the Pettys didn't get mixed up in all this drinking and carousing and all that kind of stuff.
Really? Okay.
They're really honorable people.
Interesting.
Richard Petty, I got to know him pretty well, but not real well, but I introduced him to Bob Roger, and Bob said to him, "Oh, nice to meet you, Dick." And Richard said, "If my mother had wanted me to be named Dick, she'd have named me that." Bob Roger felt terrible, but I think Richard Petty probably has used that line a lot of times.
Oh yeah, sure.
Like
Yeah.
Robert D. Young in our club. You'd call him Bob, and he would always say, Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Were you involved at all with following the other short Ram 1960s that were produced? There was a white convertible 300F that ended up being owned by some doctor, I think, down in Georgia that sold for big bucks a few years ago.
Well, I was involved in the 1960 short branch Ram. In fact, that's one of the specifications for the 6 cars that we built for Daytona was the short branch Ram. That's the first time. Then that subsequently was used in more production, but that was the first time that it was used. You know, we couldn't shut off the production with just 6 cars. With these just 6 cars. That's what we wanted to do, because every one of these cars went into what we call our header house, which was a garage at one end of a big building where cars were parked and were shipped, where these haulaways came in. Well, at one end of that bigger header house, like a huge Quonset hut, at one end of it was a 3-stall engineering garage. Probably 4 or 5 employees under a guy named Carl Kiekhaefer. Every one of these Pona-Mosan transmission cars was built on the line, came to the header house, into the engineering garage, and those 4 or 5 guys cut out the floor pan, put in the new reinforcement that was made at a prototype shop, welded in the floor pan that was made at a prototype shop, installed the Pona-Mosan transmission and so on, finished up the car, took it apart, put the transmission in, made the body modifications, and rebuilt it. Well, that was a heck of a lot of work. So that shop, which was my department, didn't want to do that in high volume. We couldn't stop at 6 cars because too many people knew about the car, and they knew vice presidents of Chrysler Corporation, or they knew the general sales manager, Bill Braden, or they knew something that said, I'll get you one of those cars. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what we built, less than 20, but more than 10
Do you know
of
if
those cars.
Do you know if there was more than one convertible built?
I'm sure the convertibles, some convertibles were built in that header house.
Does
But
anybody
we
believe,
didn't build any for Daytona. And any subsequent cars we built in the header house. We never worried about carburetor heat. Those cars would have been absolutely terrible cars to drive in Bemidji, Minnesota, for example. We just never worried about that because we wanted to go fast.
Did the using water underneath the carburetor keep
Yes.
it cooler than the exhaust
There
manifold?
was water.
But did it keep it cooler? Why did you use water?
I guess it was easier.
Oh,
I guess it was easier to plumb the water there than it was to get exhaust heat there.
I have one of your engineer's files on building those cars.
Do you?
I can't remember whose name it was because there's a check mark on the distribution and I know who it is, but I can't remember right now.
Paul Mawitz?
I can't remember. I'll send you copies. I've sent copies to all the original owners of those cars. People now that own them.
If you would, I'd appreciate that.
Well, I'll send you a copy. I must have 20 or 25 pages. It was in a desk that some guy bought a bunch of scrap from Chrysler. But I'll send you a copy.
That's a photo I got yesterday from Ron Silver.
Craig Siegel?
1982.
Correct.
Did you acquire that right after 1982?
And Andy, I don't know how much of that information you've already got. It's in that book. The poster in that is all I received. Bert, I also want,
Is that great?
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Guys out of Georgia.
Beach and you were dressed
Who's the
for
young
us to
lady
meet
with?
outdoors.
That's his wife.
It's always cold.
That's his second wife. I guess his wife had passed away and her husband had passed away. They knew each other in Elgin, so they got married. And they were supposedly married for 30 years or
I
so.
never met her.
He went to
Okay. It didn't do him any good.
You what?
Purdue.
That Rick, no, not Mitchell.
I also understand that
Not Mitchell.
Andy confirmed that there were about 5 Torque Flight short ram cars that were made.
But then his.
Does that ring a bell at all?
Well, I'm not surprised, but I wasn't involved.
He's related.
Okay,
He is related?
Yes.
I'm not surprised because they
Okay,
were
it's his
both
uncle,
together
Mitchell
all
is his
right.
uncle, okay.
okay.
He went.
It would have been done in what we call, we built all kinds of different things as long as they
Yeah.
fit together under what was called the special order. We have a special order form that we would fill out, and if we put enough of the specifications together, then our manufacturing could bolt it together we could do it.
The dealers have to be, say, well connected to get special order stuff. Because I know I sold for just a year while I was in college. I sold for the Holland Chrysler dealer for Hayes, and I know that he never, you know, we looked at the book. Could you put a Hemi engine in a Belvedere? Of course not. You couldn't. I mean, it looked on the chart. It doesn't list a Hemi engine, so no, you can't sell that. And I wondered, you know, I mean, you find out later that, oh, there's all kinds of, Ford, GM, Chrysler, sure, you can order all kinds of crap put together if you want it.
Well,
and it's like this guy, either he didn't want to or he didn't have enough.
We don't want to build those, but if you knew somebody, you could get it done.
got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
You know, that dealer had to have an in-house connection.
Okay.
He couldn't just come through the standard way
All right.
and get it.
Yep.
Well, what did they do with paint colors?
That's all right.
Because we had one car in our club that was allegedly came out of the factory in
I've been
primer.
on the phone to him.
That seems to be hard to believe that they would put a car together with primer, put all the trim on and ship
I
it.
did.
But yet, that's what was, and then what about the, you know, if you wanted like Jim's got a special blue color on a car. So how did they do this stuff at Jefferson?
Well, doing a special color, I don't know about today's manufacturing, but in the days that I worked there, that would be a major problem.
Well, it was a factory color, just wasn't offered on a letter card, wasn't it? Or was it a totally special color?
Well, he's got
You had
that
a
blue
special order in
57.
'99. They had places they shipped stuff that, like stuff you was talking about offline, not associated with Chrysler, places like Amblewagon. They actually did ambulances and a lot of other custom paint jobs for factories. And that was they charged you extras. It would be like you had a paint job at a shop done. That's what you was charged for
I
that.
don't
code
think they could
99.
afford to send us a car out to be painted.
See, if you had a special color, well, I was there, you won one car, you'd probably have to paint it somewhere else. You probably wouldn't be painted in the paint shop.
That's what I
Because
said. They had a couple of places in Detroit that they did that.
Yeah.
Even if it was a Chrysler color, but
No.
not for that.
Well, like
code
yellow
99
went,
is
it was
whatever color you want.
sunburst yellow was offered on other Chryslers, so they had the paint. They just probably had to schedule it. Yes.
Normally, a lot of them got around that. If there was enough of them, it would be like a fleet order, that you'd have a run of them, and they'd run them all in one group. A lot of times, if there was enough of them, you ordered a special car or color or something, you might have to wait 2, 3, 4, 5 months for it to run.
County Road Commission orange pickups.
Mary Kay Pink?
Now, if you
Yeah.
want
How about
to buy,
Mary Kay?
if you want to buy 100 cars in that color, well, we'll accommodate you.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I think Mary Kay's were always repaints, weren't they?
I have no
Not a
idea. I
GM.
never had one.
Huh?
Not a GM, when I worked at Pontiac, if you were a low end,
Yeah.
Mary Kay got a Pontiac. You know,
Yeah.
If you were higher end, then you got a Cadillac. We used to do pink.
They
Grand
did
Prix.
them in at GM. Is that right? Okay, I just thought they were always repaints.
No, they would do them, but they
Keith.
were special, held on the side and everything.
No,
A
really.
5-gallon can of pink paint.
Keith, could we have a piece of paper with the people's name and addresses on it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get that. We got a sheet going around over here. Sign up sheet for your book. You want the names of everybody here, or the ones for the book you're talking about?
Well, I want the ones with the book and, yeah, that's really what I'm interested in.
Okay, you got it. Okay. Now we're sending a sheet around. I'd order one from you, Bert, but I think it'd say the same thing as the one that I bought from you before. I said I would order a book from you, but it would say the same thing as the book I got. It's the same book, and it would say the same thing.
A fellow by the name of Bob,
I'll give you about 5.
Yeah.
it's a guy on the West Coast by the name of Bob, starts with an M.
Merit.
Bob Merritt, okay.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
I sent him one. He pointed out a typographical error.
Oh, that would be Bob. Yeah, we know Bob.
That's in yours.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, I said 1995 and 1996, and I meant to say 1955 and 56.
Bob would catch that. He
picked
would.
it up.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He was very nice about.
Oh yeah, he would be.
Pointing out the problem.
Oh yeah.
Is this Bob from Auburn?
Bob Merritt, who runs the our forum.
Yeah, Auburn, New York.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I
he was
guess.
supposed to be here today.
I think
Yeah, he was supposed to come
Yeah,
and.
yeah. He had to back out.
Yeah, he's got quite a sense of humor, Merritt does.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's great. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, he's.
Sometimes takes an hour or two to get used to him. He's pretty funny. He's
Yeah,
got his own extra dry way.
Yeah, yeah. He
Oh,
is.
yeah.
I just can't think of his name.
He'll be at the Mopar. Well, he usually is. a
When you
Mopar.
deal with him, just bring him nice.
Do you stay in touch with your with any other engineers from the day or any
Well,
of the
I
other
try to,
executives?
but I'm really outliving them.
Yeah.
There aren't many of them
Yeah, I suppose.
around.
Yeah, sure.
That's what my father said when he was 94. He said, the older you get, the more dead people you know. Everybody I ever knew was dead.
Yeah,
That's her too.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we're something.
Not a bad deal for you though.
yeah.
She did.
I actually
I
buy,
remember you were taking.
my body's falling apart, but I'm blessed with still having everything left up here.
I wish I could remember half as many names from my past as you remember from yours. You keep popping up with these names. That's
I've
great.
told this to many people.
About 85, 88.
As director of product planning, I could do a better job today than I did in 1968 when I was appointed. And the reason I can, back then, all I could do was see the forest.
Yep, that's
You
right.
know,
Yep,
I was in there bouncing off the trees.
yep, yep.
Now I can stand back and I can see the thing a lot clearer than I could then.
Maybe it's time for you to go back to work.
Call up Fiat.
Would they let me do it sitting down?
Write your own terms.
I'm not too good at standing or walking.
Yeah, right.
What do you think of the cars they're putting out today?
Huh?
What do you think of the cars that they're putting out today?
Terrific. You know, somebody was here from Belvedere. Oh yeah.
Nashville.
When Mitsubishi decided we're thinking